I'm so glad you found your way here. Right now, somewhere in your sleeping brain, a version of you may already be dreaming without knowing it. Tonight, you'll discover the hidden science of lucid dreaming and understand why your most confusing sleep experiences are your brain's consciousness surfacing. Welcome to Sleepy Science. Now settle in. You're in your safe space while your brain quietly shifts into the first edges of rest, clearing the noise of the day, preparing for the night ahead. Allow yourself this moment of stillness. We'll journey through 100 dream science facts about lucid dreaming. From the paralyzed body that cannot follow the dreaming mind, to the brain that watches itself sleep, to the science that finally explains it all. Notice the weight of your body. Notice where you end and the bed begins. Notice one breath arriving. That is enough. Why does your brain sometimes wake up inside a dream? And what is it trying to tell you? That question has followed people for centuries, surfacing in the dark between sleep and waking, in the paralyzed body that cannot move, in the dream that knows it is a dream. Tonight, we begin there, with the scientifically measurable phenomenon of lucid dreaming. A lucid dream is defined as a dream in which the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming while the dream is still in progress. Researchers estimate roughly 55% of people have had at least one. About 23% experience them regularly. You may have had one and never known it had a name. The first scientific proof of lucid dreaming came in 1975 from a British psychologist named Keith Hearn at the University of Hull. Hearn trained a lucid dreamer to signal the waking world from inside a dream using eye movements. Left, right, left, right. The moment lucidity was achieved. Eye movements were chosen because the body is paralyzed during REM sleep, but the eyes are not. When the signal appeared on the polysomnography machine at 8:07 in the morning of April 12, 1975, it was the first time a sleeping person had deliberately communicated with the waking world. It was proof that consciousness and sleep could coexist. The border everyone assumed was solid turned out to have a door. 6 years later, psychophysiologist Stephen LaBerge independently replicated Hearn's discovery at Stanford University and published widely, bringing lucid dreaming into mainstream science. LaBerge developed the MILD technique, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, which involves waking after 5 or 6 hours of sleep, staying awake briefly, then returning to sleep while repeating a specific intention. Next time I am dreaming, I will know I am dreaming. The technique works through prospective memory, the brain's ability to form an intention and remember to act on it when conditions are met. LaBerge spent decades refining this method. Clinical trials in recent years confirm MILD as one of the most consistently effective induction techniques available to ordinary sleepers without any special equipment or training. Sleep paralysis is one of the most unsettling sleep experiences a person can have, and one of the least understood. It happens when your brain wakes from REM sleep before your body does. For between 1 and 3 minutes, you are fully conscious but completely unable to move. Many people describe a crushing weight on the chest, a presence in the room, a dark figure in a corner. These are not hallucinations in the clinical sense. They are fragments of REM dreaming bleeding into waking perception. The visual cortex still generating images while the prefrontal cortex has come back online. Sleep paralysis affects roughly 8% of the general population. It is not dangerous. But no one told you that during the 3 minutes you could not move. The brain during REM sleep is, in terms of raw electrical activity, nearly indistinguishable from the waking brain. Neuroimaging shows that the same areas processing vision, emotion, memory, and motor planning during wakefulness are also highly active during REM dreaming. The key difference is the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic, self-reflection, and reality testing. During normal REM sleep, prefrontal activity is significantly suppressed. This is why you accept the impossible without question inside a dream. It is why a person who died years ago can walk into the kitchen and you simply say, "Hello." The prefrontal cortex is the part of you that knows this cannot be real. And during regular dreaming, it is mostly quiet. Lucid dreaming is what happens when it wakes back up. In 2009, German researchers led by Ursula Voss at Goethe University Frankfurt published one of the landmark papers in lucid dream neuroscience. Using 19-channel EEG recordings, they compared brain activity across waking, regular REM sleep, and lucid REM sleep. What they found was distinctive. Gamma wave activity, oscillations near 40 Hz, associated with conscious awareness and self-referential thought, was significantly elevated in the frontal regions during lucid dreaming, higher than during regular REM, and the pattern of brain-wide coherence looked strikingly similar to wakefulness. Lucid dreaming, they concluded, is a genuine hybrid state of consciousness. Not fully awake, not fully asleep, something that the brain apparently knows how to do, and that most people never deliberately enter in their entire lives. The false awakening is a close cousin of the lucid dream, and it has confused people across every culture that has recorded dreams. In a false awakening, you dream that you have woken up. You sit up in bed. You check your phone. You walk to the bathroom. Everything feels completely real. The weight of your feet on the floor. The quality of morning light. The ordinary sounds of the house. And then something goes wrong. A clock reads an impossible time. A door leads nowhere. Or nothing at all. You simply wake again. Truly this time. And realize the morning you just lived was a dream. Researcher Celia Green first formally documented false awakenings in 1968, linking them strongly to the lucid dreaming state. False awakenings are classified in two distinct types. Type 1 involves dreaming that you have woken in normal circumstances. Your ordinary bedroom, your ordinary routine, and realizing only upon actual waking that the sequence was a dream. Type 2 is rarer and more disorienting. Dreaming that you have woken into an environment that is subtly wrong. The room is slightly too dark. The proportions are off. The light does not behave the way light should. Type 2 false awakenings are frequently associated with sleep paralysis and are reported by many lucid dreamers as an entry point into some of their most intense experiences. The wrongness of the environment is itself the trigger. The anomaly the brain registers and uses to recognize that something here is not real. For many people, the entry point into the science of lucid dreaming is not curiosity. It is a nightmare they cannot escape. Recurring nightmares affect between 2 and 8% of adults chronically, with higher rates among people who have experienced trauma, anxiety, or significant life stress. Research published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews in 2025 reviewed multiple clinical trials and found that lucid dream therapy, training patients to become aware during a nightmare and deliberately alter the dream's narrative, was associated with reduced nightmare frequency and intensity. The mechanism appears to be metacognitive, when you can step back from inside the nightmare and recognize it as a dream. The fear loses some of its grip. Not all of it, but enough to change the ending. There is a specific moment in a lucid dream that researchers call the recognition event, the instant when the dreamer realizes they are dreaming. It often arrives without warning. You are moving through an ordinary dream scene, and then something catches. A face that belongs to someone gone, a sky the wrong color, a room that connects to nowhere. The brain registers the anomaly, flags it, runs a check against memory, and in a fraction of a second, the prefrontal cortex activates. The dream does not end. In fact, experienced lucid dreamers report that the dream becomes more vivid immediately after recognition, not less. Colors sharpen, textures intensify. The dreaming brain, suddenly aware of an observer, seems to perform for it. The wake back to bed technique, VBTB, is built on one straightforward observation about sleep architecture. REM periods grow longer and more vivid across the night. The final REM phase, occurring in the 6th or 7th hour, can last 45 minutes or more. If you wake after 5 to 6 hours of sleep, stay awake for 20 to 60 minutes with calm activity. Then return to sleep. You dramatically increase your chances of entering a long, intense REM period, and with it, your chances of becoming lucid. Studies combining WBTB with MILD show lucid dream rates several times higher than baseline. The trade-off is sleep fragmentation, which is why researchers caution against regular use. The technique borrows time from one kind of sleep to deepen another. The relationship between meditation and lucid dreaming is one of the more well-supported findings in the field. A 2018 study from the University of Wisconsin compared frequent lucid dreamers with a matched control group and found significantly increased functional connectivity between the frontopolar cortex and temporal parietal regions, the same network activated during metacognitive tasks, self-reflection, and mindfulness practice. Long-term meditators in separate studies show increased lucid dream frequency without any specific induction training. The same mental habit that allows you to notice your thoughts during the day, to step back and observe your own mental states without being entirely inside them, appears to carry quietly into sleep. The watcher does not disappear when you close your eyes. Reality testing is the practice of regularly asking yourself, during waking life, whether you are dreaming, and then performing a physical or cognitive check to verify. Common reality tests include pushing a finger against the opposite palm to see if it passes through, checking a digital clock and looking away and back to see if the numbers change, or attempting to breathe with your mouth and nose covered. None of these tests work reliably in dreams. Fingers sometimes do pass through. Clocks display impossible numbers. But the habit of asking the question, "Am I dreaming right now?" is what matters. Repeated enough times during waking, the question begins to surface during dreams. And inside the dream, the check fails. That failure is the recognition event. Not everyone who experiences sleep paralysis finds it terrifying. A subset of people, particularly those familiar with lucid dreaming, describe sleep paralysis as interesting, even useful. Some report that maintaining calm during sleep paralysis, rather than fighting the inability to move, allows the experience to transition directly into a lucid dream. This technique is called the wake-initiated lucid dream, via ELD, and is considered one of the more advanced induction methods because it requires you to remain conscious as your body crosses into sleep. The boundary between the two states becomes briefly transparent. You can watch yourself fall asleep from the inside. Most people who encounter sleep paralysis unprepared experience it as frightening. Those who know what it is sometimes walk straight through it. Dreams occur almost exclusively during REM sleep, rapid eye movement, sleep. Discovered by Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago in 1953, REM was originally identified by the characteristic bursts of quick, jerky eye movement visible through closed lids. Later research revealed that during REM, the brainstem actively suppresses motor commands to the body, a process called REM atonia, to prevent you from physically acting out your dreams. In people with REM sleep behavior disorder, this suppression fails. They kick, shout, throw punches at figures that do not exist. It is one of the more vivid demonstrations that dreams are not passive experiences. They are active, physically engaged events that the body is being actively held back from joining. There is evidence that lucid dreaming can be used to practice physical skills. A 2010 study in the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching found that athletes who practiced a specific motor sequence in a lucid dream showed measurable improvement in waking performance. Comparably to, though somewhat less than, physical practice, the mechanism involves the motor cortex, which is active during dreaming and treats imagined movement as genuine rehearsal. Surgeons, musicians, and athletes have described deliberately using lucid dreams as a practice space, a simulator imperfect and subject to the caprices of the sleeping brain, but a simulator nonetheless. The body being held still by REM atonia is not idle. It is listening to the dream, updating its maps of how to move. The term oneirology refers to the scientific study of dreams, from the Greek oneiros, meaning dream. Several major theories attempt to explain what dreams are for. The threat simulation theory, proposed by Antti Revensuu, suggests dreaming evolved as a safe rehearsal environment for dangerous situations. The memory consolidation theory holds that dreaming is a byproduct of the brain organizing the day's experiences into long-term storage. The emotional regulation theory proposes that REM sleep allows the brain to process emotionally loaded memories in a low-arousal neurochemical environment. softening difficult experiences without erasing them. None of these theories fully explains lucid dreaming, where the brain is not just processing or rehearsing, but observing itself in the act. The watcher adds a layer none of them fully account for. One of the most culturally universal features of sleep paralysis is the perceived presence of an intruder. Across cultures separated by centuries and oceans, people have reported the same experience. A dark figure, often seated on the chest, often watching from a corner. In medieval Europe, it was the night hag. In Newfoundland, the old hag. In Japan, Kanashibari, bound in metal. In West Africa, the crushing spirit. Neuroscience has since identified the mechanism. During sleep paralysis, hyperactive threat detection circuits in the amygdala, combined with residual REM imagery, generate the perception of a presence with remarkable consistency. The figure is not supernatural. It is your own brain's ancient alarm system. Momentarily untethered from a body it cannot yet wake, and looking for something to protect you from. The Dream Journal is one of the oldest and most consistently recommended tools in lucid dreaming practice, and among the most scientifically supported. Writing down your dreams immediately upon waking significantly increases dream recall over time. Most people remember 1 to 2 dreams per night under normal conditions. Dedicated dream journalers often recall 5 or more. This matters for lucid dreaming because the more familiar you are with your own dream imagery, the recurring themes, the specific impossible details, the more likely your brain is to recognize those signs within the dream and trigger the recognition event. The journal is not just a record. It is a training manual for the moment of knowing that happens inside the dream. In 2012, Martin Dressler and colleagues at the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry in Munich completed what remains one of the only fMRI studies of an actively lucid dreaming brain. Getting a subject into an MRI machine and reliably inducing a lucid dream within a narrow window required months of preparation. What the images showed confirmed and deepened the EEG findings from 2009. During lucidity, the precuneus, the prefrontal cortex, and occipitotemporal cortices, all regions associated with self-reflection, higher cognition, and visual processing, showed elevated activation compared to non-lucid REM. The brain had not woken up, but part of it had come to attention. The way a quiet room changes when someone steps in and begins to look around, carefully, at everything. The body's immobility during REM sleep, REM, atonia, is caused by active inhibition from the brainstem. Neurons in the ventromedial medulla release glycine and GABA directly onto motor neurons in the spinal cord, essentially switching off voluntary movement. It is not a passive absence of movement. It is active suppression. The brain is fully generating a world of experience, while the body is held still by a neurological mechanism specifically designed for this purpose. When that mechanism persists briefly into waking, it becomes sleep paralysis. When it fails during dreaming, it becomes REM, sleep behavior disorder. The body is always at the boundary, held just back from entering the dream fully. Most nights, the boundary holds. Occasionally, for a few seconds on either side, it blurs A 2016 meta-analysis in the International Journal of Dream Research reviewed 34 studies over 50 years. Drawing on data from more than 24,000 participants, their analysis confirmed several findings consistently. Roughly 55% of people have had at least one lucid dream. About 23% have them monthly or more. Lucid dreaming is more common in younger populations, and there is a moderate positive correlation between nightmare frequency and lucid dream frequency. This last finding is counterintuitive but consistent. People who have more nightmares are more likely to become lucid during dreams, possibly because distressing content is more likely to trigger the anomaly detection system that leads to recognition. The very experience that most disturbs sleep may also, in some people, be the doorway into awareness within it. Adolescents have lucid dreams more frequently than adults. Studies consistently find higher rates in teenagers and young adults, declining gradually through the 20s and 30s. The reason is not fully understood, but may relate to the ongoing maturation of the prefrontal cortex, which is not fully developed until the mid-20s. Some researchers speculate that an incompletely mature prefrontal cortex may be more prone to partial activation during REM sleep, creating conditions for lucidity more readily. As the prefrontal cortex fully develops and its REM suppression becomes more consistent, spontaneous lucid dreams may become rarer. Many adults who were natural lucid dreamers as children report losing the ability gradually, without knowing why, or what they would need to do to find their way back. The content of lucid dreams is shaped by the dreamer's intentions and personality. Studies using large dream report databases find that lucid dreamers who had set a deliberate intention before sleep, a specific goal, a place to go, a person to speak with, were significantly more likely to achieve those goals than dreamers who had no prior intention. However, dream control, the ability to alter the narrative or environment once lucid, is highly variable. Some experienced lucid dreamers report near complete control. Others report that the dream resists, shifts, or collapses into waking when they attempt to direct it. Lucidity and control are related but distinct skills. Recognizing you are dreaming is one thing. Deciding what the dream does next is something else entirely. There is a phenomenon researchers call the lucid dream induction paradox. Trying too hard to have a lucid dream is one of the most reliable ways to prevent one. Excessive effort, checking the clock obsessively, disrupting sleep aggressively, generating anxiety about whether tonight will work, increases arousal incompatible with the relaxed, theta-dominant brain state from which lucid dreams most often emerge. The most experienced lucid dreamers describe a relaxed intention, holding the goal lightly. The way you leave something in a room, you will pass through again. The paradox is not unique to dreaming. It appears again and again in the sleep literature. The harder you pursue it, the further it goes. You've been with us for a while now, and your breathing has likely softened without you noticing. A soft subscribe helps another sleepless mind find this sanctuary too. Now, let's pause together, one sleepy soul at a time. Let your breath find its own pace now. You do not need to control it. Just notice it arriving, the small lift of the chest, the quiet release. Notice the pause between the breath in and the breath out. That pause belongs to no one. In that space between one thought and the next, your body already knows what to do. It has been practicing this your entire life, every night, without any instruction from you. It finds its way into the deep. Let it find the way again tonight. There is nothing left to decide, nothing left to understand. Just the breath, continuing on its own, and the night doing its quiet work around you. Sleep unfolds in cycles of approximately 90 minutes, each moving through light, non-REM, deeper, slow-wave sleep, and a REM phase. The first REM period of the night lasts only 10 to 15 minutes. By the fourth or fifth cycle, in the early morning hours, REM dominates almost the entire cycle. This is why most vivid and lucid dreams happen in the final hours before waking. Not because the brain is warming up, but because REM pressure has been building all night. Going to bed earlier shortens total REM time. Sleeping in extends it. Your dream life is partly a function of when you allow yourself to wake. The neurochemical environment of REM sleep is radically different from wakefulness. Norepinephrine and serotonin, associated with vigilance and emotional regulation, drop to near zero during REM. Dopamine and acetylcholine rise. This shift creates conditions in which emotional memories can be processed without the stress-related neurochemistry that accompanied them when they were first formed. Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley describes REM sleep as overnight therapy, a period in which the brain reruns emotionally significant experiences in a stripped-down chemical environment, softening their tone without erasing their content. The terror of yesterday is replayed tonight as a quieter story. And somewhere in the chemistry of sleep, something begins to release. One of the most consistent features reported by lucid dreamers is heightened sensory quality. Colors are described as more saturated than waking life. Textures are more detailed. The quality of light has a clarity that does not quite exist when awake. Some researchers attribute this to the sudden engagement of higher-order visual processing areas that activate during lucidity. Others suggest that the novelty of conscious awareness within the dream creates a kind of attentional spotlight, directing processing resources towards sensory detail in a way ordinary dreaming never does. The world the dreaming brain has always been building suddenly has someone in it who is paying full attention, and it responds accordingly. Dreams have appeared as meaningful experiences in essentially every human culture for which records exist. In ancient Egypt, dreams were believed to be messages from the gods, delivered through a deity named Serapis. The Egyptians built dream temples where seekers would sleep in hope of receiving guidance. In ancient Greece, the healing sanctuaries of Asclepius served a similar function. Patients sleeping in the abaton, while priests interpreted their dreams as diagnostic messages. The link between dreams and self-knowledge is one of the oldest sustained human intuitions, a thread through every civilization that has found the dark long enough to dream in it. The hypnagogic state, the transition from wakefulness to sleep, is a fertile territory in the science of consciousness. In this state, which typically lasts between 5 and 20 minutes, the brain produces vivid, fleeting imagery and sounds without the full coherence of REM dreaming. Many people experience geometric patterns, faces, or fragments of speech. Thomas Edison exploited this deliberately, napping in a chair with steel balls in his hands so that as he drifted off and the balls fell, they woke him into the loose associative state he found creatively productive. Salvador Dali reportedly used the same technique. They were catching the mind between worlds, right at the edge where the dream begins to form. Nightmare disorder. Recurrent, distressing nightmares causing significant impairment is the most well-established clinical application of lucid dreaming research. Image rehearsal therapy, developed by Barry Krakow in the 1990s, involves rewriting the nightmare during waking hours and mentally rehearsing the new version before sleep. Lucid dreaming therapies extend this principle. Patients are trained to recognize when they are inside a nightmare and change its narrative in real time. A 2025 review in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews found evidence supporting lucid dreaming interventions for post-traumatic stress disorder. Larger controlled trials are still needed. But the principle, that awareness, once introduced into a nightmare, can interrupt the loop, has been accumulating support for decades. In a 2018 double-blind study published in PLOSONE, participants who took galantamine, a drug that inhibits acetylcholine breakdown, after 4.5 hours of sleep, combined with the MILD technique, had lucid dream rates more than 4 times higher than the placebo group. Acetylcholine is elevated during REM sleep and is associated with memory, attention, and the self-monitoring that supports lucidity. Galantamine amplifies this effect. Researchers stress that pharmacological induction carries risks. Disrupted sleep architecture, vivid or distressing experiences, and should not be pursued without medical guidance. But the finding confirms that the neurochemical conditions for lucidity are real, measurable, and, to some degree, adjustable. The Tibetan Buddhist practice of dream yoga is one of the most sophisticated ancient traditions of intentional lucid dreaming. Dating back at least 1,000 years, dream yoga involves practices designed to maintain awareness throughout the sleep cycle, recognizing the dream state, transforming dream content, and using the dream as a vehicle for insight into consciousness itself. Contemporary neuroscientists who have studied long-term dream yoga practitioners have found measurable differences in their sleep EEGs, including elevated gamma activity during REM, consistent with the lucid dreaming signature identified by Voss and colleagues. The same brain state a laboratory detects in 40 Hz. A meditator cultivates across a lifetime. Research published in 2024 examined the use of an EEG headband to detect REM sleep onset and deliver mild auditory cues, tones or soft-spoken prompts, designed to enter the dream without waking the sleeper. In a pilot study of 40 participants, those who received cues during confirmed REM periods reported higher rates of lucid dreaming compared to nights without cues. The effect was modest, and many participants found the cues woke them rather than primed lucidity. But the finding supports the principle that external signals can cross the boundary of sleep and influence the dreaming brain. The challenge is not whether the signal gets through. It is whether the dreaming brain can hear it quietly enough. The relationship between meditation and metacognition. Thinking about thinking. is central to every major theory of lucid dreaming. Metacognition allows you to say, "I notice that I am thinking about this," rather than simply thinking about it. It enables self-monitoring, the ability to step back from your own mental processes and evaluate them. This capacity develops gradually through childhood and adolescence, partly explaining why lucid dreaming is more common in younger people. It is cultivated by meditation and reflective practice, by the habit of asking not just, "What am I experiencing?" but "How am I experiencing it?" The question you practice during the day is the one the dreaming brain learns to ask at night. The lucidity and consciousness in dreams scale. Lucid, developed by Ursula Voss and colleagues in 2013, measures 8 dimensions of the lucid dream experience: insight, control, thought, realism, memory, dissociation, negative emotion, and positive emotion. What the scale reveals is that lucid dreaming is not a binary on-off state. A dreamer can have partial insight, knowing they might be dreaming without full certainty, or high insight with low control. The richness of the lucid dream experience is not captured by the simple question of whether the dreamer was lucid. It is a spectrum, and at every point along that spectrum, the brain is watching itself from the inside while the experience continues. Dream incorporation, the process by which external stimuli enter the dream and become part of its narrative, is the mechanism behind auditory induction devices. A phone alarm becomes a fire truck. A cat crossing your feet becomes an earthquake. Rain on the window becomes a waterfall. The sleeping brain does not entirely lose contact with the external world. Sensory signals continue to reach the thalamus and can break through into the dream. If a sound has been trained during waking to serve as a cue, a signal that means you are dreaming, it can trigger the recognition event from outside. The dream can be reached. The question is always whether the knock is gentle enough. The question of whether lucid dreaming disrupts normal sleep is one researchers take seriously. Many induction techniques require interrupting sleep. For wake back to bed or supplements affecting REM neurochemistry, raising concerns about sleep fragmentation and its effects on memory consolidation and immune function. For most healthy adults, occasional practice does not appear to cause measurable harm, but sleep scientists caution against aggressive induction schedules. Deep, uninterrupted slow-wave, non-REM sleep serves functions that no amount of lucid REM can replace. Cellular repair, immune maintenance, the deepest physical restoration the body knows. The goal of lucid dreaming practice is not to maximize lucid minutes at the expense of the sleep that holds everything else together. The prefrontal cortex's partial reactivation during lucid dreaming has led researchers to describe it as a model for studying consciousness itself. The question of what makes a mental state conscious, what transforms a brain process into an experience felt from the inside, is one of the deepest unresolved problems in science. Lucid dreaming offers a rare experimental lever, a state in which a person can be simultaneously asleep and aware, dreaming and reflecting, inside an experience and observing it. By comparing brain states across lucid and non-lucid REM, researchers hope to isolate the specific patterns of activity that turn a brain process into a moment of knowing. A study published in 2025 in Current Biology, found that neural replay during non-REM sleep, the hippocampus rerunning the day's experiences, is modulated by emotional salience. Events that were emotionally significant during the day were replayed more frequently and with higher fidelity. Events that were emotionally neutral were replayed less. This selectivity may explain why we tend to dream about the things that matter most: the difficult conversation, the approaching deadline, the person we cannot stop thinking about. The dreaming brain has priorities. It returns, again and again, to what it has not yet resolved. And sometimes, in the middle of that returning, something inside the dream realizes where it is, and the recognition event begins. You're still here, still breathing. Let that be enough for now. We'll keep going slowly, gently, one fact at a time. There is nowhere else to be tonight. The dreams of people born blind offer insight into how the dreaming brain constructs its worlds. People blind from birth do not have visual dreams. Their experiences are built from the other senses: sound, touch, smell, spatial awareness, emotional tone. People who lost sight after childhood often retain visual imagery in dreams for years, sometimes for life. The brain builds the dream from what it has known. And what it has known, it will not easily forget, not even years after the seeing has stopped. The visual cortex's involvement in dreaming reflects accumulated experience, not an innate template. The dream is not a factory-installed program. It is a record of what the brain has lived. The body temperature drops approximately 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit in the hours before and during sleep. This drop is not a consequence of sleep. It is a trigger. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, coordinates a cascade of physiological changes in the early evening. Melatonin rises. Alertness falls. Core body temperature begins its nightly descent, cooling the extremities. The hands and feet helps radiate heat from the body's core and accelerates this process. A warm bath or shower in the evening, paradoxically, accelerates sleep onset because the subsequent cooling is steeper and faster. The drop in temperature is the first stage of the crossing, the body beginning to practice stillness before the mind follows. The amygdala, associated with emotional processing, particularly fear and threat detection, is highly active during REM sleep, more active than during wakefulness. This explains the emotional intensity of dreams, the way they produce genuine terror, genuine grief, genuine longing that persists into morning. It also explains why emotional memories are processed during REM. The amygdala is revisiting them, softening their charge. In lucid dreams, partial reactivation of the prefrontal cortex introduces a regulating influence. One reason some therapists propose that lucid dreaming allows people to approach emotionally charged material with a distance ordinary dreaming does not offer. The observer and the afraid one can coexist, and the observer does not have to be afraid. Shared dreaming. Two people reporting the same dream content after sleeping separately has been claimed throughout history, but has not been demonstrated under controlled laboratory conditions. What has been demonstrated is that people who share a life tend to share dream themes. Partners tend to have more emotionally similar dreams, reflecting shared experiences, anxieties, and daily life. This is not telepathy. It is the brain dreaming from shared material. The dreams are separate, but they are built from the same life, the same arguments, the same hopes, the same recurring worry about the thing that has not yet been resolved. The dreams are separate, but they rhyme. The default mode network, active during internally directed thought, daydreaming, and self-referential reflection, overlaps substantially with brain regions showing elevated activity during both REM sleep and lucid dreaming. It includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the angular gyrus. Researchers have proposed that dreaming is the brain's default mode fully expressed. The network generating the internal narrative of selfhood running without external input, constructing a world from memory and imagination alone. Lucid dreaming, in this model, is the moment when the default mode network becomes aware of itself. The story-generating system pauses just long enough to notice it has been telling one. There is a point in a long, stable lucid dream that experienced practitioners describe as the stabilization challenge. Shortly after the recognition event, the lucid dream begins to destabilize. Colors fade. The environment becomes indistinct. Wakefulness pulls at the edges. The standard technique for stabilization is to engage the senses actively within the dream. Look closely at a surface. Run your hands along a wall. Speak aloud. The neural explanation is that active sensory engagement sustains activity in the perceptual cortices generating the dream, preventing them from deactivating. It is as though the dream is a flame, and attention is the oxygen that keeps it burning. The moment you stop engaging, the flame begins to dim. People with narcolepsy, a neurological condition characterized by sudden REM onset, sleep paralysis, and vivid hypnagogic hallucinations, have some of the highest spontaneous lucid dreaming rates of any studied population. Because narcoleptic REM is not preceded by the normal gradual descent through non-REM stages, they frequently enter REM with some waking consciousness still active. For narcoleptic dreamers, lucidity is not a skill to cultivate. It is a routine feature of a sleep architecture that blurs the boundary between waking and dreaming more readily than most. Their neurology does routinely what most people spend months training their minds to do. The border is simply thinner for them, and they cross it, most nights, without trying. Sleep spindles, brief bursts of neural activity between 12 and 16 Hz, lasting half a second to 2 seconds, occur during stage 2 non-REM sleep, generated by the thalamus. They are believed to protect sleep from external disturbance and to transfer information from the hippocampus to the cortex for long-term storage. More recent research has found that sleep spindle density correlates with certain measures of intelligence and learning. The transition from stage 2 non-REM into REM, where spindle activity gives way to REM's low-amplitude mixed-frequency waves, is one of the most underappreciated moments in the sleeping night. Something shifts. Something that was guarding the sleeper stands down. and the dream begins to take shape. Polyphasic sleep. Dividing sleep into multiple shorter periods across the day rather than one consolidated nighttime block. Increases lucid dream frequency. This is consistent with research on REM pressure. The longer the waking interval since the last REM period, the more intense the next REM period will be. Short strategic naps generate intense mini-REM periods. Some extreme schedules, like the Uberman schedule of 6 20-minute naps per day, produce frequent lucid dreams almost as a side effect, though at significant cost to slow-wave sleep and the restorative functions it serves. Lucid dreaming researchers caution against extreme polyphasic schedules. The lucid dreams become more frequent, but the sleep that holds the body together becomes dangerously thin. The sleeping brain does not entirely lose contact with the external world during REM. Sounds, touch, temperature changes, all can cross the threshold and enter the dream, becoming woven into its narrative. A cold room becomes a winter landscape. A distant alarm becomes a warning bell inside the story. This same mechanism has been observed in reverse. People with chronic pain report that pain follows them into their dreams, appearing in the sensations of the dream body even when the dreaming mind has forgotten to expect it. The dream is porous. The body outside it is always speaking. And most nights, the dreaming mind is listening, even when it does not know it. Let your body become very still now. Notice the sounds around you, in the room, beyond the room. Let them come and go without following any of them. Your mind has been traveling tonight. So many facts, so many rooms inside the science of sleep. Let all of it settle now, like sediment drifting to the bottom of still water. You do not need to hold any of it. The things worth keeping will stay on their own. The rest will drift. Let your breathing slow. Let the boundary between what you know and what you are begin to blur, the way the horizon blurs at dusk. You are very close to sleep now, a little closer with every breath. Why does your brain sometimes wake up inside a dream? One partial answer may lie in what researchers call the threat simulation system. The Finnish neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo proposed that dreaming evolved as a safe rehearsal environment for dangerous situations. If this is correct, then sleep paralysis and the lucid recognition event that sometimes follows it may represent the threat system identifying something wrong and summoning the observer. The brain wakes itself inside the dream not as a malfunction, but as a protective signal. Something detected an anomaly. Something called you back. And for a moment, between the dream and waking, you were both. Recurring dreams, repeating the same themes over months or years, are experienced by roughly 65 to 75% of people. The most common themes include being chased, falling, arriving unprepared for an exam, and being unable to move. Psychologists propose that recurring dreams reflect unresolved emotional concerns the dreaming mind returns to repeatedly. When the underlying concern resolves, the recurring dream typically fades. For people who become lucid during a recurring dream, recognition often comes through familiarity. I have been here before, and that recognition becomes the beginning of something different. for the first time in years, a door opens that was never there before. The hippocampus, central to new memory formation, shows a fascinating pattern across the sleep cycle. During wakefulness, it encodes new experiences. During slow-wave sleep, it replays those experiences in compressed form, sending them to the cortex for long-term storage. During REM, it generates dream content, drawing on stored memories and combining them in novel ways. This is why dreams so often mix the familiar and the impossible, the hippocampus contributing known elements while the absence of prefrontal oversight allows them to be assembled without logical constraint. Your office appears inside your childhood home. A person from a decade ago stands in a room that never existed. Sleepwalking, somnambulism, occurs during slow-wave sleep, not REM. This is why sleepwalkers do not act out vivid dream narratives. The events during which they walk and speak are not, in the REM sense, dreams. Slow-wave sleep produces its own minimal experience, fragmentary, poorly remembered, but not the coherent narrative world of REM. Sleepwalkers operate in a profound dissociation. The motor system is active, but the narrative-generating systems are largely offline. They are moving through a world they are not experiencing. They will remember none of it. Present in the room, but the person who would notice being there is somewhere else entirely. The research on gender and dreaming is consistent but modest. Women report more vivid and emotionally complex dreams, more social content, and higher rates of nightmare distress. Men report more aggressive and physically active dream content. These differences are partly neurological and partly cultural, influenced by what kinds of dream content people are encouraged to notice and share. Lucid dreaming rates show a slight male prevalence in some studies, a slight female prevalence in others, and no significant difference in many. The recognition event arrives without preference. It finds whoever has been watching. A 2025 study from Radboud University found that alpha wave connectivity in posterior brain regions during lucid dreaming is significantly higher than during ordinary REM sleep, a finding that aligns with theories of alpha oscillations as markers of top-down attentional control. In ordinary dreaming, the brain generates experience from the bottom up. Sensory and emotional signals arise and are accepted without evaluation. In lucid dreaming, top-down attentional signals impose a layer of evaluation on the ongoing dream. The alpha signature may be the neural footprint of that evaluation, the brain checking its own work while the work is still in progress. The dreaming brain, catching itself, dreaming. The relationship between lucid dreaming and insight problem-solving has attracted scientific attention. A 2014 study from the University of Lincoln found that frequent lucid dreamers performed better on insight problems, puzzles requiring sudden restructuring rather than step-by-step logic, compared to non-lucid dreamers. The researchers proposed that the metacognitive habits cultivated by lucid dreaming may generalize to waking problem-solving, the ability to step outside an experience and see it from another angle. The connection is speculative, and sample sizes are small, but the direction is consistent with a broader literature on sleep, creativity, and non-linear thinking. Sleep researchers have described the first night effect, sleep quality, significantly worse on the first night in an unfamiliar location. Brain imaging shows that one hemisphere sleeps less deeply, remaining in a lighter, more vigilant state. Researchers from Brown University identified in 2016 that the default mode network and auditory cortex of the more vigilant hemisphere show elevated activity during slow-wave sleep in unfamiliar environments. Maintaining a watch. This asymmetric sleep, one half of the brain standing guard while the other rests, is a direct descendant of the neural architecture that allows migratory birds to sleep with one eye open. Even here, something is listening. The memory of a lucid dream is qualitatively different from the memory of an ordinary dream. Ordinary dream memories fade rapidly. Most are gone within minutes of waking, if not immediately recorded. Lucid dream memories tend to be more durable. Researchers believe this is because the partial reactivation of the prefrontal cortex during lucidity engages the encoding processes that lay down explicit memories. The recognition event is tagged as significant, and the brain applies the consolidation mechanisms it uses for waking memories. The result is a memory that feels less like a dream and more like something that actually happened. Because, in the deepest neurological sense, it did. Average lucid dream duration, once the recognition event occurs, is typically between 2 and 5 minutes. Long, stable lucid dreams are rare even among practiced lucid dreamers and require active effort to maintain. The instability of the lucid dream is one of its most consistent reported features. The dreaming brain is not designed for an observer. When an observer appears, something fundamental has been disrupted, and the system moves to correct it, usually by waking the dreamer, or destabilizing the dream until awareness is lost. 2 to 5 minutes, most often, and then the dream continues without anyone watching. For many people, the memory of a lucid dream is not simply vivid. It is philosophically troubling. In the lucid dream, you knew you were dreaming. The knowledge was clear. The experience was real. And then you woke up, and the world that contained the knowing was gone. Some lucid dreamers describe this as the most disorienting part. Not the flying, not the sleep paralysis, not the false awakening. The most disorienting part is waking up and realizing there was a version of you, moments ago, who knew something you cannot now confirm. The experience is over. But the question, what was watching, is still here. The experience of time in dreams is not simply compressed. It is structured differently. In ordinary dreaming, time feels continuous. One moment follows the next in an unbroken stream. But in waking recall, that continuity often dissolves into a series of scenes without clear transitions. The dreaming brain does not experience these gaps. They are artifacts of forgetting. What this means is that the dream you remember may be a reconstruction, a coherent story assembled from fragments of a more discontinuous experience. The continuity was added afterward, by the brain that could not tolerate the gaps. Dreams appear to function as a processing environment for grief. Several case studies describe bereaved individuals who sought, through deliberate lucid dreaming practice, to encounter deceased loved ones, to have a conversation, to say something left unsaid. Sleep researchers approach this carefully. noting the risks of confusing dream experience with reality. But therapists involved describe something more nuanced. Not a replacement for grief, but a continuation of an internal conversation in a space the dreaming brain had already been using for that purpose. Unbidden. The brain was already returning. The only question was whether to do it consciously and whether to say goodbye. The relationship between psychedelic compounds and dreaming is an active area of scientific research. Classic psychedelics produce experiences phenomenologically similar to REM dreaming. Vivid, emotionally intense, resistant to critical evaluation. Both states involve suppression of default mode network, self-referential processing, combined with heightened activity in sensory and associative cortices. Some researchers have proposed that REM sleep, particularly in its most intense late-night phases, is the brain's endogenous altered state, a nightly episode of profound experience the body generates for its own reasons, and has been generating for hundreds of millions of years. The molecule is different. The territory of the experience may, in certain respects, be the same. There are people for whom lucid dreaming is not a rare achievement, but a chronic, spontaneous condition. Individuals who become lucid in almost every dream without deliberate practice. Researchers call this natural lucidity. It is associated with higher baseline gamma activity during waking EEG, stronger metacognitive tendencies, and personality traits including openness to experience and a tendency toward absorption. Deep, immersive engagement with internal states. For natural lucid dreamers, the challenge is often not achieving lucidity, but grounding it. They wake inside the dream every night, and most mornings, they remember being there. But they cannot always say what they did with the time. Research published in 2024 examined how emotional content in dreams shifts across the sleep cycle. Dreams in the first half of the night tend to carry more negative emotional content, reflecting the processing of difficult experiences. Dreams in the second half tend to shift toward more neutral or positive emotional tone. The sequence appears intentional. The brain processes the hardest material first, during the deepest neurochemical suppression of stress hormones, and returns lighter content toward morning. By the time the dream you remember wakes you, the work that needed doing has largely been done. What surfaces is the part that was ready to be felt gently. Insomnia and lucid dreaming have an unexpected relationship. People with insomnia, who spend more time in light sleep and have more frequent awakenings, often report higher rates of vivid and unusual sleep experiences, including false awakenings, sleep paralysis, and incidental lucidity. Some researchers propose that fragmented sleep architecture creates more transitions between sleep stages, and that it is at these transitions that consciousness becomes unstable and lucidity most easily emerges. Insomnia is not a route any sleep researcher would recommend, but it illuminates something real. The border where the brain becomes aware of itself is not in the deep. It is at the edge. The average person spends approximately 6 years of their life dreaming. A calculation from average sleep duration, average REM proportion, and average lifespan. 6 years of vivid, emotionally charged, sometimes terrifying, sometimes transcendent experience occurring inside the skull while the body lies completely still. For most of those 6 years, the dreamer will have no memory of the experience by morning. For a small fraction of that time, they will know, inside the dream itself, that they are dreaming. 6 years of experience. A few minutes of awareness within it. But those minutes, the people who have them say, are among the most vivid of their lives. The neuroscientist Giulio Tononi has proposed integrated information theory as a mathematical framework for consciousness, defining it as the amount of integrated information a system generates, measured by a quantity called phi. In this framework, the dreaming brain has a high phi value, comparable in some ways to waking consciousness. The lucid dreaming brain, where metacognition comes online, theoretically has a higher phi still. Whether Tononi's framework is correct is deeply contested, but it offers one way of understanding lucid dreaming as a state in which consciousness is measurably expanded. The sleeping brain, at its most aware, may be doing more than the waking brain typically requires. Sleep talking, somniloquy, occurs across all stages of sleep but is most linguistically complex during REM. The content of sleep talking is not reliably connected to the content of the simultaneous dream. A person may be speaking complete sentences during REM, while the dream involves entirely unrelated imagery. Sleep talking is common in children, affecting up to 50% of the population, and decreases with age. The sleeper has no awareness of speaking, no memory of it. The words arrive from somewhere the dreamer cannot access. Something is speaking that is not the conscious self. And the conscious self is not the only one home. Daydreaming and dreaming share more than a name. Both involve spontaneous, self-generated mental imagery unfolding without deliberate direction. Both are associated with default mode network activity, and both are disrupted by tasks requiring focused external attention. Some researchers propose that daydreaming is the waking analog of dreaming, a state in which the brain slips briefly into the generative, associative mode that normally produces dream content. For natural daydreamers, the boundary between waking imagination and dreaming may be thinner, and the transition to lucid dreaming may require less effort. Sleep simply gives the mind permission to close its eyes while it builds. The sense of embodiment in dreams is both consistent and strange. Most people, in most dreams, have a body, a felt sense of physical presence, of occupying space, of having hands and weight. But the dream body is not identical to the waking body. People with missing limbs report dreaming of intact bodies. People with chronic pain often report pain-free dreams. The dream body flies, passes through walls, moves at impossible speeds. Some researchers propose the dream body reflects the brain's internal body schema, a model that can be modified by imagination in ways the physical body cannot. At night, that belief becomes the only world. The relationship between music and dreaming is understudied but real. People who play musical instruments tend to have more complex auditory dream content. People who listen to music before sleep are more likely to dream of musical elements. Among lucid dreamers, music is one of the more commonly reported dream activities. Not simply hearing music, but composing it, discovering melodies that do not exist. Paul McCartney described dreaming the melody for Yesterday in 1964, waking with the tune fully formed. The dreaming brain does not only replay, it creates. And occasionally, what it creates is better than anything the waking mind would have found on its own. For many people, the entry into lucid dreaming practice begins not with curiosity, but with the simple need to stop waking up afraid. The nightmare that replays every few nights. The paralysis that comes without warning. The false awakening that makes morning feel untrustworthy. What they find when they find a framework is that it does something unexpected. It does not just explain the frightening experiences. It transforms the relationship to them. The sleep paralysis that was once terror becomes a threshold. The recurring nightmare that was once a trap becomes a familiar door. The brain that was waking you up in the middle of your own dream turns out to have been trying to tell you something. At the center of all lucid dreaming science is a single observation that refuses to be entirely explained. The sleeping brain can become aware of itself. In the midst of a dreamed world built from its own activity, it can step back and recognize what it is doing. The capacity for self-reference is one of the deepest features of consciousness, and one of the hardest to account for. 55% of people have had at least one such moment. In those moments, your brain's hidden consciousness surfaces. That is what lucid dreaming is, and why the question still does not have a final answer. Your mind has traveled a long way tonight, through the REM stages and the slow waves, through the recognition events and the paradoxes, through the science of a brain that sometimes wakes up inside its own dreams. Let all of that go now. You do not need to hold any of it. Let your breath become the only thing that is happening. In and out. The science will still be there tomorrow. The dreams will still come. Right now, there is only this breath, and the weight of your body, and the dark that is holding you without asking anything in return. Something in you already knows how to do this. It has been doing it every night of your life. Let it happen now. Sleep and memory are inseparable. Research from Harvard Medical School has shown that a single night of sleep after learning a new skill increases performance on that skill by 20 to 30%, an effect that cannot be replicated by waking rest alone. The sleeping brain is not passive. It is reviewing, identifying patterns, strengthening what was learned. The dream is part of that process. The surface of a much larger invisible operation. Every night, without permission, your brain enters a state so strange that scientists spent decades arguing about whether it was real. The eye movements, the body held still, the world constructed from nothing, and yet it happens. And it has been happening since before the first person put a name to it. That is not a small thing. That is one of the stranger gifts of being alive. The recognition event, the moment the dreamer knows they are dreaming, has been measured to the millisecond. Gamma waves surge. Prefrontal activity spikes. The brain, which had been running without a witness, suddenly has one. And for a few minutes, usually only 2 to 5, something unprecedented occurs. A sleeping mind observes its own dream from the inside. Sleep paralysis, in the light of science, is not a haunting. It is not a visitation. It is the brainstem doing its job imperfectly at the edge of REM. The figure in the corner is your own amygdala's threat detection system, briefly visible. Knowing this does not make it easier in the moment, but it makes the morning after a little clearer. The MILD technique, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, asks you to hold one intention as you fall asleep. Next time I am dreaming, I will know I am dreaming. That is all. The brain files it. And sometimes, across many nights of asking, it finds a way to remember. The asking is the practice. The remembering happens on its own. The Tibetan meditators who practice dream yoga describe the recognition of the dream state as simply noticing, not effort, not will, just attention, carried quietly from waking into sleep. The same attention that notices a thought arising during meditation, applied at night to the entire experience of being alive inside a sleeping mind. They practice it for years. Some find it quickly. Some never do. And both are part of the practice. The out-of-body experience. The sense of perceiving yourself from outside your physical body is neurologically related to lucid dreaming. Both involve a disruption of the temporoparietal junction, which integrates multisensory information to construct the brain's model of the body's location. When that model is disrupted by the unusual conditions of sleep paralysis, the felt sense of self can become unmoored from the body. Not metaphysically, neurologically. The self is a model, and models can temporarily mislocate themselves. False awakenings, particularly the type 2 variety in which the familiar room is subtly wrong, are described by many lucid dreamers as more disorienting than sleep paralysis. Because you believe you are awake, you perform the morning, you carry the weight of the day beginning, and then something shifts, and you realize the morning has not begun. It was a room the dreaming brain built overnight and forgot to label. The dream journal trains the brain to remember. Recall, repeated, signals relevance. And what the brain flags as relevant, it begins to carry more carefully into waking. Over weeks of recording, the dreams become more complex, more coherent, more available. The waking mind and the dreaming mind begin, slowly, to know each other better, which is its own kind of practice. Galantamine, developed originally for Alzheimer's, extends the presence of acetylcholine during REM sleep. And acetylcholine is the neurochemical of attention, of memory, of the self-monitoring that allows the dreamer to notice they are dreaming. The chemistry of lucidity is not mystical. It is a specific arrangement of molecules at a specific moment in a specific brain. Extraordinary, in its own way, for being that ordinary. The prefrontal cortex develops last in the human brain, not reaching full maturity until the mid-20s. And it is suppressed first in REM sleep, more deeply than almost any other region. This double relationship, last to develop, first to go quiet, may explain why adolescents dream more lucidly, and why the capacity seems to fade with the years. The brain that has not yet fully built its observer may lose it more easily into the dream. Researchers who study consciousness describe lucid dreaming as a natural experiment, a state the human brain already knows how to produce, in which consciousness can be studied from the inside while it is happening. You do not need to induce anything unusual. The brain is already doing something extraordinary every night. Lucid dreaming is just the version in which someone is home to see it. The average lucid dream lasts 2 to 5 minutes, but the people who have had them rarely describe them as brief. Time inside a lucid dream moves differently. The quality of attention, the density of sensation, everything is amplified in a way that makes 2 minutes feel like a different kind of time than the same 2 minutes spent awake. Perhaps because the brain that is observing has nothing else to do but be there. Dream yoga practitioners in the Tibetan tradition describe using the lucid dream as a practice space for the moment of death, a rehearsal for consciousness releasing from the body. This is not science, strictly speaking, but it points to something that the science does not yet explain. Why the experience of being aware inside a dream feels, to so many people, like a confrontation with the most fundamental fact of their existence, that there is someone here, that something is watching, that the watching is the real thing. Tonight, in a bed somewhere not far from yours, someone is lying in the dark with questions they cannot answer about what their brain does when they sleep. They have woken paralyzed. They have dreamed a morning that was not a morning. They do not have a name for what happened, but the science you have followed tonight does. And somewhere in those facts, the next person who needs them is already waiting. The first written account of lucid dreaming in Western literature is attributed to Augustine of Hippo, writing in 415 AD, describing a physician who became aware he was dreaming and had a conversation about the soul. 1400 years later, the conversation has not ended. The science has found new language for it. But the experience Augustine described, the strange clarity of a mind that knows it is sleeping, has not changed. The brain has been doing this for a long time. Artificial light, particularly blue wavelength light from screens, suppresses melatonin production and can delay sleep onset by up to 90 minutes, which means the late night REM period, the long, vivid period most likely to produce lucid dreams, begins an hour and a half later and is cut shorter by the alarm. The dream science you have followed tonight begins, before anything else, with the simple act of letting it get dark. Metacognition, the habit of observing your own mental states rather than simply being inside them, is the foundation of every lucid dreaming technique that has ever shown scientific evidence of working. And metacognition is also the foundation of most of what we know about emotional regulation, anxiety management, and resilience. The skill is the same. The dream is simply where it becomes visible as a skill. Because, in the dream, without it, you cannot see the walls at all. The relationship between sleep and creativity has been studied systematically since the early 2000s. A 2004 study in Nature found that participants allowed sleep after partial training on a mathematical problem were significantly more likely to discover a hidden solution than those who remained awake. The researchers proposed that sleep restructures memory in ways that reveal previously hidden relationships. The dreaming brain, making its strange combinations in the dark. is sometimes doing the work the waking mind could not find the angle for. Your most confusing sleep experiences are not glitches. The paralysis that held you down. The dream that knew it was a dream. The figure in the corner that was your own amygdala, standing guard. These are not malfunctions. They are your brain's hidden consciousness surfacing, reaching toward a kind of self-awareness that the science is still learning to explain. Tonight, you followed that science all the way here. Why does your brain sometimes wake up inside a dream? Because it is always, in some sense, watching. Sleep is not the absence of experience. It is a different kind of experience. Vast, mostly invisible, occasionally luminous. The brain does not rest when you close your eyes. It continues. It processes, consolidates, imagines, rehearses, creates. And somewhere in the architecture of all that invisible activity, a small light sometimes comes on. For a few minutes, the sleeper knows they are sleeping. Your brain does this. It may do it again tonight. The science of dreams is incomplete. The science of consciousness is more incomplete still. Lucid dreaming sits at the intersection of both. Measurably real, neurologically documented, and still not fully explained. The researchers who study it are not certain what they are studying. The people who experience it are not certain what they have experienced. And that uncertainty, that open question in the most ordinary thing the body does, may be the best reason to keep paying attention to what happens when you close your eyes. You have likely spent time in the architecture of your own dreaming brain without knowing it. The sleep paralysis that frightened you. The dream that felt too real to be a dream. The morning that was not a morning. The thing that was watching you from the corner of a dream, which was the oldest part of your nervous system, doing what it has always done. You have been inside the science tonight. You have also been inside the experience. They are, it turns out, the same place. 100 facts about the brain that wakes up inside its own dreaming. 100 moments in the science of a phenomenon that most of humanity has encountered and almost none have fully understood. You followed all of them here, to the quiet edge of a night that is still unfolding. What happens next, in the sleep that follows this, is still yours. The brain that generates the dream is still yours, and something in it, tonight, has been listening. Why does your brain sometimes wake up inside a dream? And what is it trying to tell you? The answer, as the science currently understands it, is this. Your most confusing sleep experiences are not glitches. They are your brain's hidden consciousness surfacing. A system so complex it can observe its own activity. A sleeping mind that can know it is sleeping. That is what you carry with you tonight. That is the thing the science found. And now, it is time to rest. Tonight, you traveled through 100 facts about the brain that sometimes wakes up inside its own sleep. You followed the science from Keith Hearn's 1975 polysomnography machine, and that first signal sent from a sleeping mind to the waking world, all the way to the 2025 EEG studies measuring alpha waves in the lucid dreaming brain. You visited sleep paralysis and learned the figure in the corner was your own amygdala. You visited the false awakening and learned that the morning that was not morning was simply the dreaming brain building the familiar room again. Without telling you, you followed the recognition event, the gamma surge, the prefrontal flicker, and you understand now that the most confusing moments of your sleeping life were not errors. They were signals. They were your hidden consciousness, surfacing. Of all the things the sleeping brain does, all the consolidating and processing and grieving and creating, perhaps the strangest and most quietly extraordinary is this. It occasionally wakes itself up to look at what it is doing. And in that moment, in that brief surge of self-aware activity in the middle of a dreamed world, something fundamental about what it means to be conscious becomes visible. Not explained. Not resolved. Just visible. And that visibility, that brief, luminous window where the sleeper knows they are sleeping, is one of the most extraordinary things a human nervous system can do. Welcome to Sleepy Science. Let your body become completely still now. Let your breathing slow to its own pace. You do not need to guide it. Let the facts settle. Let the questions settle. Let everything you followed tonight find its place, the way water finds its level in the dark. Something in you has been listening all this time. Something quiet, at the back of everything, that does not need to understand in order to know that something is still here. Let it be here. Let the breath continue. Let the night receive you. You have done enough. You have understood enough. Now, simply rest. Tonight you walked through the science of your sleeping mind. Perhaps someone you know lies awake, confused by what their brain does in the dark. Share this. Subscribe. Leave a quiet like, and help these facts reach one sleepy soul at a time. You are allowed to sleep without understanding everything. You are allowed to dream without knowing where the dream comes from. You are allowed to wake confused, and let the confusion soften with the morning. You are allowed to not remember. You are allowed to have a mind that keeps working after you have stopped asking it to. You are allowed to rest while that mind continues. You are allowed to be, for now, just a body in the dark, held by everything that has been holding you all along. Sleep well. Dream gently. And if the light comes on inside the dream tonight, that small, strange, luminous moment when the sleeping brain looks up and knows itself, know that you are safe. Know that you are held. Know that what is watching has always been you. Good night.